Breakfast with me, Valentine.
And I am Mairo-Ese. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. It is the time for us to go through detailed analysis of our newspaper stories. The ones before us come from the Guardian, the Punch, This Day, New Telegraph, and we have the Vanguard as well. Now, in front of us, we have our analysts who are here, seated, ready to go through the stories with you and give detailed analysis. We have Wade at Ring, Nigeria. Good morning, Wade.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Ayo.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Lagos. Thank you.
And Bolahan is Mr. G Quest. Welcome.
Ladies first, morning Ayo,
Morning.
Valentine,
Good morning.
and good morning Lagos.
Thank you, thank you. Lagos, sending your messages through WhatsApp.
WhatsApp is 0809 444 0981. That's 0809 444 0981. On Twitter, we're at Smooth981FM. Please follow us and use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981 to send in your messages. We're streaming live on YouTube. Search for Smooth 98.1 FM on YouTube.
Our first story is from the Vanguard newspaper, and this is for you, Wade. First, it's this message from the Southern leaders, sort of a message, but pretty much just saying we're not going to be part of this forum because we're not told that Mieti Allah is going to be in attendance. What am I talking about? Regarding the insecurity situation in Nigeria, we won't attend meeting with Mieti Allah. Southern Middle Belt leaders tell Abubakar, that's the former head of state, General Abdul Salami Abubakar. He invited them to a roundtable to discuss national issues and security that was scheduled to hold in Minna, Niger State. Your thoughts on this, Wade?
I do think the meeting is a good idea, and I don't think, personally, I don't think that SMBLF, that's the Southern Middle Belt Forum, Leaders Forum, should have declined the meeting. Sometimes it's best that we all sit down and dialogue and find out how to improve security across the country, and also share your concerns about the actions of some particular organizations, the way you feel, and that way you can actually resolve more issues rather than not being in the meeting, because at the end of the day some of these things will affect your areas, and it might be best to sit down in the meeting and hear what everybody has to say and then come up with concrete solutions or suggestions of how to improve security.
All right, Wade, I'll stop you there just to interject a little bit. Let's take ourselves back now and use an analogy that we can relate to. If you have issues with somebody and somebody calls you to a meeting where he's going to act as a mediator between the two parties, what would you go prepared with? I mean, what sort of information would you like to go to the meeting with?
Information concerning what exactly they're doing.
Yes.
Information concerning how you want to resolve the issue. Information on best way to how do we partner to get these things moving in the right direction.
That's right. Now, would it make a difference in your preparation if you knew that the other party was going to be in attendance?
Yes, it will be.
Exactly. So if the Southern leaders weren't told that the Mieti Allah were going to be in attendance, do you think that may be grounds for refusing to attend?
It may be grounds, but it's
by the time they now find out at the end of the day that we're going to come.
Yeah, but at least they will be there, and then you'll be able to share your reservations about the issues that are going on and how do you intend to work out these challenges. For me, like I said, it's the idea is good. Bringing everybody to the table. First and foremost, we also must remember that everybody must be transparent, and I think on the part of the people who called the meeting, there should have been that transparency of telling them the people who are going to be there right on time.
Oh, how about, sorry to just hammer on this, but how about the sentiments shared by the Southern leaders, Middle Belt leaders, that Mieti Allah is a trade association for cattle herders and whose members have been accused of various violations of rights, including life, across the country, and that they're being lumped together with this kind of group, saying that they're not on the same level? Why should we, as nationalist groups and parties or groups and elders forum, come to sit at the table with this kind of group? They saw it as an insult, really.
If they were having issues with the fishermen also, are you going to say because you're elders you're not going to come to the table?
Well, they said then they should have invited the poultry farmers as well.
You have an issue with a particular set of people, so let's deal with that first and then we move on.
All right, talking about moving on, we'll move on to our next story from the Guardian newspaper. Scientists have harped on cattle genetic improvement as farmers commend the CBN's policy on milk imports. While that had a lot of people knocking the move by the Central Bank of Nigeria to ban or put restrictions on importation of milk and other dairy products into the country. There's some other bodies who are saying, well, we are in support of the CBN, especially veterinary doctors and animal breeding specialists. One, Morenike Dikbiolu, said that I think, in her words, I think the angle of the CBN is good. It will stimulate local production. Even if we are going to bring some things in, let the local production be stimulated. And the CBN governor was quoted as saying that, well, it's very easy. The process to get a cow to produce milk more is just to
It's
feed
just
in
to
a
get the
lot of
cows
grass and
water
a
and
lot of
milk.
milk
Yeah.
and
Water
water.
and grass.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
it. But do you think the same way?
Well, just as the article reported that the scientists in Nigeria, and they're referring to the scientists, we're talking about a Professor Latif Sani, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Agriculture in Abeokuta, that's FUNAB. Then you also have the veterinary doctor that you quoted just right now, which is Professor Morenike Dikbiolu. And they both agree with the CBN's policy. And the reason why they said they do agree with it is simply for the reason being that it will help in stimulating the local economy, they say, and it will also help in growing the human capacity. And we're talking about the technical know-how of producing more milk and more dairy product in Nigeria. So they see this as a good move. They're looking at it from the scientific angle, which is uh, having more genetic strains, better strains that are able to produce more milk and produce more dairy product. But there are also some other parts of this article, and that is going by a Dr. Ademole Raji, a former director of the Department of Animal Husbandry, who has made statements such as the productivity of the milk that we get in Nigeria. In Nigeria, he's staking his claim, stating that in Nigeria we are only producing 1 liter per day of milk. That's our productivity for milk, as compared to the rest of the world, where we get about 20 to 50 liters per cow daily produced of milk. So obviously, we're not producing enough milk as it is right now in Nigeria. The yield is very, very low, and that's where the problem lies in Nigeria. If you ban the importation of milk in Nigeria, then we are likely to have a shortage. And when we do have that shortage, you know what tends to happen? There tends to be a lot of smuggling that would fill in that vacuum and that void where the production is not enough. So the issue that we have is that nobody is really against stopping or reducing the import of milk. But what you need to be doing is looking at the alternatives. You need to be looking at how we're going to be able to produce more. You don't just wake up one morning and decide to place an outright ban on it. It will have a ripple effect. It will have on price and availability of the product. And we know what the importance of milk is in the society. Of course, it helps in stimulating the growth of the younger generation. We do not want kids 10, 20, 30 years down the line coming up with stunted growth. So, I mean, what advice would I be recommending? The advice I'll be recommending is obviously to take a gradual approach with this. You know, how are we going to ensure that we produce a lot more? It's by looking at the enablers and the stumbling blocks that we have that prevents us from producing more. Yes, genetics is one of it, but what about the ease of production, electricity? We're talking about the mechanized farming that is going to require. We're also talking about the transportation of all these products from one point to the other. Improve the infrastructure, improve the environment, and production will come automatically.
Which is in line with what Kabir Ibrahim, who's the current president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, said. He said that if the CBN was opening another window for livestock development along with current efforts, including the livestock transformation plan, it would drive the process sustainably if allowed to be deployed broadly. So an all-inclusive program would really give results.
I mean, rice. Look at rice, and there's a lot of smuggling going on with rice, and we're still not self-sufficient on rice at the moment. We're talking about banning milk. We're not actually self-sufficient yet.
Thank you, Bolaho, for your thoughts on this. Let's move on to our next story. This one is regarding the Labour Ministry, talking about NLC and every Nigerian Labour Congress. Now, from the Punch newspaper, they're asking Buhari, our president, to not reappoint Ngige as the Labour minister. Please share your thoughts on this, Wadi.
Um, first and foremost, Ngige is not going to decide which ministry is going to go to, but I do tend to agree with Labour on this. Utterances by Ngige in the last dispensation did not go down with so many things relating to Labour. Well, successfully he was able to negotiate the minimum wage issue with them, which I think was his biggest success as Labour minister.
But they do not think that's enough.
No, that for me, I said that was his major success, but he didn't do anything aside from that, aside from criticizing the essence of labor in Nigeria, and also not one of his biggest undoing was not inaugurating the board of the NSITF, which was a major scandal for him. We remember the doctor issues, quite a number of them. So I guess they're right on this, and I think the president should think twice and not put him back as Minister for Labour.
But looking at Ngige's performance, besides his relationship with the Labour Congress, how would you rate him as a minister?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give him maybe 3, because I didn't see
That's
anything.
Really
Because I didn't, aside from the minimum wage, I didn't really see his impact in
Are you counting the minimum wage as one of his successes?
It's not even complete yet.
Because
Yeah,
he has a number of challenges with the minimum wage and a number of criticisms of the minimum
so
wage.
that's why I said 3.
Over 10.
Okay,
Wow.
let's take some comments from WhatsApp. Lukman Sakabello from Bagada says, as long as peace is the objective and stopping all the unnecessary killings is the plan, all avenues should be welcome. The solutions to Nigeria's myriad of problems will be found in the most unlikely of places and for taking or talking before anything else. And then Ace from Agos says, good morning. My only worry with this so-called peace summit organized by General Abdul Salami is that he has no power to implement whatever the resolutions will be. Instead of organizing several other summits, why not implement the 2014 CONFAB recommendations, which had inputs from every ethnicity and state in Nigeria, or at least the Governor El Rufai committee recommendations organized by President Buhari APC? There's no political will to build this country peacefully, which is sad.
Now, we heard the story about the possible proscription of the IMN, that's Islamic Movement of Nigeria, and reports that the federal government successfully secured a federal high court order to proscribe them as a terrorist group. Now, this story just x-rays the reaction of the Christian Association of Nigeria to that. From the Vanguard newspaper, I have this report. The headline reads, "It's dangerous, illegal to outlaw Shiites," says Khan, Shehu Sani, and senior lawyers. Even as the group says that they had no plans, that's the IMN, says it has no plans to attack southwest states. I guess that's where the fear from many people observing this is coming from. But what's your take on this story, Bolang?
Well, I think when the news broke, I believe it was Saturday or Sunday that the federal government has gotten a court order to proscribe the Islamic movement of Nigeria. The first thing that came to mind is that when we're looking at our constitution, the constitution does permit for the right to free association and the right to worship freely.
Yes.
And the Islamic movement of Nigeria is a religious group or a religious sect. Irrespective of how much we disagree with the way they're going about their practice, it's enshrined in the constitution that we all have to respect each other's religious beliefs. So when the government came up with this, I was a bit surprised and taken aback. But here we are this morning, comment from the Christian Association of Nigeria, from Shehu Sani, and also from Michael Zakilome, who, Chief Michael Zakilome, that's the lawyer,
yes,
who has come out outrightly to express their displeasure at what the government has done, and then they see it as illegal and unconstitutional too. Shehu Sani has made a statement, and going by him, he said that it's as if we're trying to douse a fire and then raising up a wall of curtains, which is simply saying that we're actually adding more
More fuel to the
fuel
fire.
to the fire.
Yes.
That why would we be trying, if we're talking about prescribing, if we're talking about a religious group, there's so many other ways that we can look at this situation. We have a leader who is El Zaki that we can hold accountable for the actions of the Islamic movement of Nigeria. They are a group that can be seen, but once you proscribe this group and make them illegal, then obviously you're exposing yourself to making them going underground and doing all sorts of things, and then we will be talking of not even being able to put a finger on the people that are perpetrating crimes or offenses. So I mean, he's preferred solutions to this.
Yeah,
And one of the solutions that he did prefer was that he was talking about how about El Zaki being released and El Zaki being released and being released to the Sultan of Sokoto, who will stand as a shorty for him. And then you also look at the situation, you sit down and then discuss with the Islamic movement of Nigeria to stop the protests that they've been having, whether violent protest or non-violent protest.
Because the real reason why they're going on protests is for it's calling for the
Of course,
release
it's
of their
about the
leader.
release of the leader.
And then looking at the third reason that he gave, or the third solution.
Well, the third solution is that, of course, he was also talking about Islamic movement of Nigeria also dissociating themselves from any external forces, and then if they're aggrieved of any issues, they address the issue as Nigerian and not getting any external interference.
And then the government should move towards addressing, make moves towards addressing the problems of those of their members that were killed, and
absolutely,
homes that were destroyed,
and the homes that were destroyed. So I mean, when the government proscribes this group, now you're telling them that they're an illegal bunch group, but you're not addressing the situation that they're facing. The leader has been incarcerated for several years now. You haven't actually addressed the judicial challenges that you have. If there's a court ruling, despite the court ruling that has asked for his release, you disobey that order. If there's an issue, why don't you address it along the legal lines rather than detaining the man till perpetuity?
All right. Okay, so Vincent Mecca from Adeba says you can prescribe organizations or groups, but it is difficult to prescribe ideology. And I think that's an important note right there, because a number of people have said, oh, they want to ban Shiite Muslims. No, they're not banning or putting a ban to that. It's the ideology that is being under scrutiny here this morning.
Steve Obeko from Surulere says Nigeria is just dishing out prescriptions to different organizations left, right, and center. Is there no alternative? Now we have 3 confirmed terrorist organizations. We will soon enter Guinness Book of Records as the country with the highest number of terrorist organizations. What a good way to go. That's sarcasm in that message. And Ian says the government, says the CBN didn't ban importation of milk, but rather they have restricted the access of forex by importers. Please, okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I think we reiterated that again and again about the fact that it is a restriction on forex. We talked about it earlier today, so but thanks a lot, Ike, for pointing that out again. All right, let's move on to our next story here. I'll come to you, Ade, for this one. And we have the headline, Buhari orders military action against killers of Borno mourners. Now, news broke out that tens of people were killed in a funeral procession in Borno State, in Maiduguri, the capital city, which is said to be the safest city in Borno at the moment. Can you please take us through this story, Ade?
There's no day we come to the studio that every Monday, every Tuesday, every day of the week that we don't hear about one set of killings or the other, and it's become it's continually becoming ridiculous every day. About over 60 people were killed, about another 11 injured in Borno during a funeral procession, and each time what we hear is, oh, the president has ordered immediate action, and I can't see the actions coming. Every time it's Boko Haram attacking one military formation or the other, and really there's nothing here that that is being said that hasn't been said. Every time these issues of insecurity comes up, at least now he's saying something through his press advisor. But what action will the military take if they could not protect innocent citizens while they were going out to to bury the dead.
Mhm.
So at what point do you want to get these insurgents and capture them? We continually hear the military saying that we're fighting Boko Haram, but the losses of human casualty continues to increase every day.
Well, if it's any comfort, he said a major exercise has begun to hunt down the attackers with air patrols by the nation's Air Force and ground patrols by the Army. We'll keep you updated on the progress of this story, but thank you very much, Wadi, for that comment. Well, now let me come to you for this one. Still around Borno State, and now talking about starving internally displaced persons, IDPs in Borno communities, as they come out to plead for government assistance. Premium Times has this report. Now, it's really important for us to keep on putting a highlight or shining the light on the plight of IDPs in Nigeria, in their camps. At the moment, we have about approximately 2 million displaced people in Nigeria following violence in certain areas, primarily in Borno State. We just talked about one yesterday in Maiduguri. But can you please take us through what they mentioned, highlighting the fact that one of the biggest challenges is of food?
Mhm. Yes, I mean it's heart wrenching to see this being reported in the in the newspapers that we have our own citizens of uh, Nigeria
Mhm.
who unfortunately have gone through the hardship of the insurgency, and they've been dealt a heavy hand with the insurgency. They've lost their livelihood, they've lost their homes, and so many other properties, and they've had to relocate from where they were living.
Mhm.
According to this report, just as you mentioned, that you have about 2 million internally displaced people,
Yes.
and 80% of those people are from Borno. A lot of them are now residing outside the state, and they're residing in several places away as internally displaced persons.
Mhm.
And to hear now that on top of all the issues that they're already facing, the government that is meant to be looking after them,
Yes.
they are not getting adequate food in the respective camps that they're in.
Yeah.
And they've complained severally to NEMA, that is the National Emergency Management Agency,
Agency. Yes.
and NEMA has come back to say that they are it's beyond their own control.
Mhm.
These are situations that they do not have sufficient facilities or funds for. They lack proper coordination, and the humanitarian services is what NEMA has reported.
Yeah.
So now,
I mean,
I mean,
there are many questions around this goal.
yes,
Number one is money is surely being allocated to the
yes,
IDPs.
yes,
Why is it not being accounted for?
yes.
Why do we have people who are hungry? We have, I mean, if you can, please read the report in Premium Times. Like Bolawan described it, heart-wrenching report. Talks about those who've even had children in these camps. Talks
Absolutely.
about NGOs who have pulled out, exacerbating the issue, because when we look at the fact that it's
Security.
not just the government
Yes.
who intervene, we also have
The NGOs.
non-governmental, yeah,
Yes.
international and local.
Hmm.
What's going on? Is it that the food is not getting to the
I mean,
intended?
I mean, I'd like to cast our mind back to the issue that occurred, I believe it was in 2016, where the National Assembly reported or did an investigation and found out that monies that were meant to be going to the IDP
Mhm.
were being misappropriated.
Mhm.
And one of it, I mean, several government officials were indicted in that report then. And so what tends to happen is that government releases a lot of money,
Mhm.
but the money does not really get to its purpose. It never gets to serve its purpose.
Yeah.
And this article also reported that too, that they never do proper investigation and thorough checks to ensure that whatever money is being released is being accounted for. So there's no lack of accountability is what we have going on. And the second bit is that when the NGOs also release funds too,
Yeah.
we are still bedeviled with the insecurity challenges. I mean, just last week, we had video clips of some Nigerians that were rendering aid being kidnapped, and they were appealing for the
Yes.
government to come to their aid too.
Mm.
So we still have that situation of insecurity occurring. So all of these added together is what leads to what we're
What's the
seeing at the moment. Now,
solution?
of
What's
course,
the
the
solution?
solution is for the government to really take effective monitoring
Yes.
of the funds that are being released
Mhm.
to ensure that the monies are being channeled through the proper means. And of course, the ultimate solution is also finding a lasting solution to the insecurity challenges that we're
Absolutely.
facing in the country. I mean, we don't need headlines saying that Boko Haram has been technically defeated.
Mhm.
Boko Haram has been, we just
Semantics.
need, semantics. We just need that.
We need
We need
reality
an
in
end
the
to
real world.
it.
Thank you. And I think this is also a great time to make a call for anyone who's willing to support these camps to go in there and help. The situation is not really funny. It talks about also skill acquisition, employment for some of these people who want to rebuild their lives and who do not have access to this opportunity.
All inclusiveness. Vincent Mecca from Nadeba says government has treated its security in this country with insincerity and lack of trust. Killing people that are mourning is really sad. Walmart Chigozie says boycotting the purported meeting with Mietiala by Southerners is a welcome development. Let the federal government, led by Buhari, prescribe Mietiala. Simple.
On one hand, people are complaining about the number of drugs that are being prescribed. On another hand, people
They're
are
adding
calling for
more.
more prescriptions. All right, let's move on to our next story, Bola, and I'll stay with you for this one. Concerned about the incessant incidents involving Nigeria's biggest carrier, Airpeace. Biggest carrier, that's arguable, but according to this report, that's the adjective they've used. That's Airpeace. The aviation regulatory body, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, has commenced audit of the airline. What are their findings? What have they said? Bola, can you please take us through this report?
Well, I mean, this audit now is coming off the back of the incident that has occurred with Air Peace. I mean, they've had about 3 serious incidents that has occurred within the last 6 months,
Yes.
and then we experienced one just about a week ago, where it was reported that a flight that was coming into Lagos just suddenly nosedived and it crash landed. At least, thankfully, no lives were lost and
Yes.
everyone was safe. So now we're having the NCAA conducting an audit, which is just standard practice. Usually, you would find out that you have the Accident Investigation Bureau, that's the AIB, would normally carry out an in-depth analysis to look at the reason behind it, if it's caused by human error or if it's by the environment or other external factors or so. And normally they would be expected to report within the next few weeks, a preliminary report, and then there will be an in-depth report later on down the line.
Yes.
But where I would be touching on is that we've had this severally, where you get the preliminary report immediately, but then somewhere down the lines we rarely hear about the final report, or maybe the final report comes several years later. We would like to see a situation where all of this is done expeditiously. It's very important. Of course, when we're looking at air travel, quite a lot of people are traveling by air at the moment now because of the situation that the insecurity challenges that we're facing across the nation, traveling by road,
Yes.
with the kidnapping incidents and the banditries that occurs on our roads. So people are looking at traveling by air, and it's been reported that air travel is one of the safest forms, or is still one of the safest forms of traveling. And as such, what we just do expect is that the Nigerian Civil Aviation authorities do their job effectively and ensure that, I mean, air travel remains very safe. I mean, we've had a number of years now we haven't had serious incidences occur in the air travel.
We've had a number of near misses.
We've had
Just to assure the flying public, according to a statement from spokesman for NCAA, Sam Adroboye, that all the aircraft on the fleet of authorized air operator certificate holders operating in Nigeria are airworthy. Wadi, I'll come to you for this last story before we move on to comments. Overcrowding, poor facilities, worsen students' woes in federal government facilities hostels. Punch has done this elaborate report and highlights universities like University of Port Harcourt, OAU, University of Calabar, UNN, and Usman Danfodio University in Sokoto. Can you please take us through this report quickly?
A lot of the facilities in the universities have not been touched for a very long time. And before now, quite a number of hostels outside were quite affordable. But today, with the present situation in Nigeria, people can afford to rent whether it's a one room or an apartment outside the school premises, because in a place like Port Harcourt, some apartments are going for between 100 and 120,000. But it just goes to show the level of government not putting enough funding into education. So many of the universities you go into, not new hostels haven't been built in years. So when you have population of 35,000, I don't know, with 10 hostels, I don't know how many people you want to live in the hostel. There are fears left, right, and center of collapse of building, bed bugs, bushes growing everywhere, people queuing up to use the bathroom. Well, I just want to advise that government should focus more on putting enough funding into education and building new infrastructure for these hostels and for these schools, so that more people can get a place to stay when they're in school.
All right, thank you so much. And let's go on to Twitter for our next comment.
All right, we have messages here. This one is from Chukuka. It says, that's Cherish Vic. It says, it's crazy how after banning rice, people still smuggle rice, and the price of rice in the market didn't quite reduce, but actually increased. What about the cement policy? If these are the kinds of policies, please, we do not need them.
That's a fair point.
And on the ban of okay. We did not see an elaborate message here, but Emmanuel from Ikeja says, good morning. AIB final reports are available. Okay, we're going to check that out. Thank you, Emmanuel, for sending that resource.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who sent in messages to our various platforms. And let's see how, okay, YouTube, we don't have any on there.
Thank you so much. And special thanks to our analysts for stepping in. Mr. G Quest is Bolaho. You can find him as Mr. G Quest on Twitter. You can find Wade, who just had a book reading session on Saturday. Congratulations for that.
Wade.
Thank you very much
For his book, Capri
and thank you, Smooth Crew, for supporting me all through.
Thank you so much,
Well done,
Wade.
proud of you.
And Lagos, we get to talk sports next in 15 minutes with Tega. It's on Locker Room 981. Good morning.
Wade,
Interesting comment.
what's the name of your book?
Crappy Facts.
I said it several times.